Hey, I'm MellyS The Story Collector, and this is the Courage 1000 Project, the show where we share personal stories of inner courage from all around the world to inspire you to find your own. In today's episode, we're talking with Kirsty Fields. Now, she's going to share with us the courage it took for her to start her own business, and really wants to use this story to inspire you to know that you can use your skills and your passion and your knowledge to really restart your life and be all the more sweeter for it. Now, Kirsty is the creative director and owner of Social Ocean and has over 20 years experience coordinating corporate, sporting, volunteer and kids events. So everything from small intimate art galleries to national sports games with over 10,000 fans in attendance. So Kirsty has the imagination and artistic style to create an event to meet anybody's needs. So we're going to drop you straight into the episode, and I will admit we were talking for quite a bit before we started recording, so enjoy. Awesome. Okay, so where does it start? What happened?
I was hanging around the house, and it was January 2016, and my boss rings me. My boss is Sydney based, rings me the eve of, returning back to the work year, and to tell me that there's no job to come back to and that the entire office has just been let go.
Oh.
So after a lovely summer holiday, that kind of put the kibosh on my feeling and reflection. Now, thinking back, all I know is that I was at home with my husband having a lovely summer break, and then bam, that's the phone call I got. But in my naivety, that job was a marketing management role, and so I had access to basically the entire company. Yep. In terms of, oh gosh, okay, right, things aren't good. Obviously, you don't fire people when the business is in a good place. And I've put myself forward. How can I help? What do you need me to do? So I basically worked for 3 days, which I never got paid for in the end. And I as a result, found out lots of things that company was being fraudulent about, actually. Oh. So, and I won't go into that really, but that automatic reaction for me is, oh, wow, sympathy. What can I do to help you? Has been something that I think I have done a lot in my time. I'm always trying to assist other people.
Yeah.
And I think it took me about a week to kind of process that I'd been sacked. I mean, I wasn't sacked and I wasn't made redundant, because I wasn't made redundant correctly. But so I depending on who I talk to, I describe it differently. But I say made redundant because it's what would have happened if they had have had processes in place correctly.
It's easier to understand from another's perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Conversation flows much better when you just say I've made redundant. But it took me about a week, but I'd walked outside to take that phone call because I was home from my husband. I walked back inside, and my husband's taken a look at me and gone, what's going on? And I said, just lost my job. And it's like, his reaction was like, what? As you can imagine. But it took me a whole week of just getting up like I was still on holidays, realising that I wasn't actually ever going to finish holidays. And I can think about it kindly now of, I'm never going to finish holidays, but that's not how I was feeling at all.
Yeah. There would have been a lot of fear there still.
I was in shock. I was really in shock.
Yeah.
I'd never lost my job before. I'd never been sacked. I've never been told that I'd done stepped out of place. Has happened, I could count on one hand in my adult life.
Yeah.
That something was not quite right or not gone smoothly for whatever reason. So that was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
What's happened?
Yeah.
And then that normal thing of, I guess I better get in a job. Like it finally got to the point where it's like, okay, well, I can't be on holidays.
Yeah.
I'm not on holidays. I'm just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the word is to describe that, but I was just that
You were
like
kind of
across.
just numb. You were just in a numb
Yeah.
phase. Yeah.
What am I supposed to do when I get out of bed in the morning?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I started looking for a job, and, just, I think that's pretty standard, tidying up my resume, which I hadn't had to tidy up for a decade. I'd before that gone from job, I'd been poached for jobs to job to job. So I hadn't even tidied up a resume properly. And even just that process was like, wow, how do people get up and feel motivated about putting a resume together and contacting strangers and scrolling through web advertisements,
Yeah.
on all those seek.com and equivalents.
Yeah.
But it was probably about another week or two later that I'd had, excuse me, I've lost my voice a little bit.
You're right. Go for it. I love the cup.
I feel like I've been talking very much today either. Yeah, in a week or two after that, I had two different people give me a buzz, and one of them was to ask me to do some graphic design stuff, because I've got a marketing background and I'd done a lot of graphic design in my previous role, along with corporate events.
Yeah.
So one of my friends is like, hey, can you help me out with this? I'd say, yeah, sure. I'm not busy. Send me an email. What do you want? So I did that job, and then I did a couple of little things for him. And then I had another phone call from someone who was a volunteer as part of an association, and they'd lost the person who had been doing their admin and corporate conference coordination through someone moving overseas. And they're like, oh, look, this person kind of does a few hours for us every week, and we know you're looking for a job and all sorts of things up in the air, but it's a couple of hours a week, and if you're not busy in the meantime before we find a real job, would you help us out? Would you be interested? You could do this with your eyes closed. I was like, well, actually, that gives me something to just refocus on.
Yeah.
It is just a few hours per week, and I really had no concept of what those things were going to be in the long term. No idea, really. But it made me feel better about myself that someone was valuing me in that moment.
Yeah.
And, considering I'd been, not that I had been devalued by the people that I worked with, but like those feelings you go through when you lose a job.
It still hurts on a personal level.
It absolutely, very, very hurtful. So that made me feel great. And the next phone call, and I said, yeah, I will do it. Absolutely. I said, great. All we need from you is an ABN, because we need you to invoice us, because we're in an association, and, we got to pay on an invoice. We can't give you cash in hand or, any of those scenarios. And it's like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, I think that's okay. And I just said yes. And lots of people say that just say yes and work it out later.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't familiar with that term at that time.
But you learnt it.
Yeah. But in the last, 2.5 years since, I have very much become familiar with that say yes and work it out later. Absolutely. It's probably a motto that plays in the back of my head when someone asks me something difficult. It's like, say yes, because what could happen? Something bad could happen, but, you can make lemonade with lemons. So that was a really pivotal moment in me saying yes, figuring out how to get an ABN and going about that process. And all the good jobs in marketing are in the city, and I live like an hour out of the city, and I had been doing that hour-long commute, and I wasn't looking forward to going back to it. So I was then in a phase of like, well, I've just accidentally started a business. 2 people in a fortnight have asked me, could I help them with something? And I had then all these other people coming out of the woodwork going, yeah, you can do that. You can do that. You should do that. I've always thought you could do that. And so those feelings of value were returning because people were saying good things to me and, you know, make me feel good, bolster my opinion of myself.
Yeah.
So it turned from kind of stopping that job search and reading anything and everything I could get my hands on to tell me about how to start a business, how to run a business, how to be a business owner. And so that's my moment of my world crashing around me to someone giving me a call and saying, I need your help.
Yeah.
And me saying yes, to completely changing what my idea of my success was, which was dressing nicely, working in an office as a manager. I never felt like I was, or never had thoughts of owning a business, running a business, and being the one in charge. That's never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And I've fast forward 2.5 years, I still feel a little bit uncomfortable about the fact that when people go, oh, what do you do? So I've changed my language over time to describe what it is I do, what my business is, etc., etc. But it still feels a little bit strange when the words come out of my mouth that I run my own business.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so yeah, world crashing down around me to business owner almost 3 years later. Yeah.
So where do you think that moment of courage really came in for you? Was it accepting that you are now a business owner, or was it living the reality of being that business owner?
I tell you, probably a bit of both of those answers. I think realising that I had a skill set that other people valued was pivotal in, I said yes without the thought of figuring it out later. But
Yeah.
that moment of realising that, yes, I've got skills that other people value, that's part of it. But I think I wouldn't say I was burnt out. I didn't have that corporate burnout that a lot of women experience,
Yeah.
and that I have discussions with. But I think my spirit had been crushed by losing my job, and that affected me. It still affects me a little bit today, a lot more. So I think it was a bit of a moment where it's like I'm valued. People will pay for my skills, but also pull up your britches and get on with it. And this is an avenue that you can follow until you can't, I suppose. I think that's probably what I was a bit more realistic about.
Yeah.
And then I started to educate myself in an area of skills that I realised that I just didn't have, just because I hadn't been a business owner. Why would I have that skill set? So
So really, it's a courage to step into something entirely new that you've never done before and learn as you go.
Yeah, I've definitely learned as I go. That's definitely something I've got to say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah.
That's been very true of what's happened in the last couple of years. And someone suggested to me, actually it was a person that I had worked with a couple of years prior, rang and invited me to a business networking event that he was running which is actually way on the other side of the city. It's like, 2 hours drive from me. But hey, once again, I wasn't very busy. So I was like, yeah, sure, thanks, I'd love to.
Yeah.
And realised that by going to that networking event, there was probably another group of people that wasn't 2 hours away from me that I could connect with and learn from and engage with. And it actually gave me a real insight into how business owners can connect with each other outside their workplace as business owners.
Yeah.
So thanks to that person who introduced me to business networking, I very quickly found a networking group just here locally. And I actually, did Chamber of Commerce and a couple of different groups, in fact, and found out that I could talk to other people who experienced what I've experienced and learn from what they had to say, even what industry they were in. Like they could offer me hints and advice and tips on what, if I might not have understood it at the time, but I could then go take it back to the office and do some more research. So I think, I feel like I'm on a successful pathway, but there's a lot of people who have contributed to me being redirected to the right place to find out how to do things correctly.
Yeah. And do you feel that you needed that courage when you were approaching these people going, I don't know this, what are you talking about? And then asking for help? Yeah,
because there were some things, I suppose, when you meet someone that you don't know, and then just as an example, I met a lady who was a lawyer over a ladies' wine drinking group on a cheeky Friday afternoon at the pub, basically. And I was introduced to her, and she was lovely. We, struck up a great conversation. And I was aware that perhaps people didn't want to talk about what they did in away free services over a glass of wine. So I think I was a bit hesitant depending on the setting where I was. But this particular lady, she just asked me the right questions about what I was doing in my business. And I said, I've been here, there and everywhere researching, and I've found some really great resources from the government online, and I've just done this. I'm really excited I've done that. And she asked me if I'd then done another thing. And I said, oh, no, I don't need to do that. And she said, actually, yes, you do. And that conversation actually saved me potentially a rather large fine because I'd misinterpreted something I'd read on a government website.
Oh,
and I quickly went home and corrected my mistake.
Yeah.
So in some circumstances, I guess I was nervous about asking people.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't want to feel like I was using them for free.
Yeah.
But now that's completely different. After meeting people in a business setting at least once a week, actually, of do business networking, just generally across 2 years, I have all the courage in the world to ask you something that might help me in my business, because I've realised how valuable it is to have those conversations with others. But also, I could have a conversation with you and find out something that you've done in your business that makes me think of a client. It's like, I need to have that conversation with this person because that might really help them.
Yeah.
So my courage to have conversations with strangers and to not worry about the fact that I might be extracting information that they could very well charge me $675 to hear. Yeah. Is front and center now, and I've helped not only just myself but many of my clients out of with some interesting situations, I suppose.
I love it. I love it.
Much braver to talk to strangers now than what I ever was before.
Yeah. So what do you perceive courage to be then? Like, it's the ultimate question. What is courage for you?
I think if I try and kind of put it into one sentence that makes sense, I think courage is taking the step forward past that feeling of insecurity and being unsure about what comes next. So quite often we get asked to do something and the automatic response is a no or nervous laughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that now if either of those two things are about to come out of me, I stop and reassess about why I've got this nervous pit in my stomach that makes me want to giggle like a little girl, or go, oh, no. So for me, it's courage is being able to move forward and past those intense feelings that stop you from doing something. It might, and I can kind of align what courage is to those physical senses for me.
Yeah.
Or more so than something that's spiritual perhaps, but it's definitely connected to my mindset.
Yeah.
And probably growth through being a business owner and being the person who needs to make decisions. Probably more so now I recognise I can make decisions on my own without having to ask permission of someone else. So yeah, I think how it plays out for someone else and how they might recognise courage is going to look different for everyone. But I can recognise when I have a fear. So for me, that courage is stepping past that fear.
Do you feel you are destined to make an impact in this world, but are struggling to find the courage to share your story? Jump over to mellys.com.au for free training, presentations and videos, or simply stay tuned for the next episode of the Courage 1000 project.